Welcome back to Biodiversity and Conservation. Let's look at the next part. Next part is regarding the conservation of biodiversity. So, how do we conserve the biodiversity? Now, conservation is nothing but a preservation of biodiversity. How we can save the biodiversity? How we can save the wildlife? How we can save the plants which are present in the nature? So, this is regarding protection of our environment, protection of our biodiversity, protection of our species, whether it is a local or a non-local, but it is indigenous to the globe, the earth, planet earth. Okay, then in the biodiversity conservation we have major three categories. First one is a narrow utilitarian reason, second one is a broad utilitarian, and the third one is of a ethical part. Now what exactly it is? Now narrow means we are conserving our biodiversity to a lesser extent by this process. Then broad refers to we are conserving our biodiversity in large sense, in large scale, and ethical is by the ethical people. How do we conserve the biodiversity? Let's see them one by one. First one, narrow. We are conserving species to a narrow extent by all these processes. What are these processes then? First one is food. Food is nothing but we get food through the agricultural sources, also through the agricultural crops, which already you studied in the food production topic. By the agricultural crops, we are going to produce a lot many food. Okay, now suppose if we are growing sugarcane, so how many acres do we grow? Do we grow sugarcane in only 1 acre, 10 acres, 100 acres, or 1000 acres? No, it is in large scale. Why? Because we have to supply sugar not only in our country but throughout the globe, throughout the world. Everyone needs sugar, okay, to produce the sweet foods. As a result, this sugar cane, if it is planted in a large quantity, suppose if there are thousands of hectares of land, and if a sugar cane plant is there, what is the species richness then? Only one. Though we have millions of plants, but species richness is one, because this sugar cane belongs to Saccharum barberi, or it may belong to Saccharum officinarum, okay, which is a South Indian sugar cane. So that's why, though we plant them in large scale, but we are conserving only one species. Suppose if we are cultivating jawar, then do we cultivate only in 1 acre? No. So we cultivate in large scale. We may cultivate it in 100 acres, 1000 acres, or more than 1000 acres also, and it has to be supplied throughout the globe. As a result, the species conservation is of only one, species richness is only one. That's why we call this as a narrow utilitarian reason, so that we are conserving this species for the benefit of humans. So whatever we are studying here, this is for the benefit of humans only, but still we are conserving. So we have not conserved this species. The species are present in the nature only. We are exploiting them and we are growing them. Okay, since time from our ancestors, I think more than 10,000 years ago, we are doing the agriculture process, and the process is continued. What will happen if you suppose if you stop the agricultural growth? Then ultimately we suffer with a lack of food. So that's why food has to be produced. The food from the agriculture sources like cereals, pulses, fruits, and rest of the plant products, including the vegetables, they are also protected. And this part forms the part of a narrow utilitarian reason. This is one thing. Next, firewood. Now the firewood, from where do we bring? We bring it from the forest only. Okay, now here cutting down forest is different issue, that is habitat loss and fragmentation. Suppose naturally, due to natural climatic conditions like cyclone and other effects, yeah, or due to the process of aging, if the tree has fallen down, then yeah, those trees are taken and it is used as a what? Firewood, especially by the rural people who are present nearer to the forest areas. They can use it as a for firewood. So as this firewood is a source of the nature and the natural source, it can be used. So this is regarding the part of the firewood. Then fiber. From many plants like jute, we are going to extract the fibers, and these fibers are commercially exploited. Jute plantation, again we do the plantation. That means we are conserving that species. This is what is called as a biodiversity conservation. The next one, industrial products. So industries will produce a lot of products, and industries will produce them in large amounts, not in a small amount. That means large scale production of the products takes place through the industries, and that is majorly from the plant sources also. Tannins, dyes, lubricants, resins, perfumes, gums, then rubber. Through the rubber plant, we use these plants for the commercial production of all these products which is marketed. That means to produce those products, first the plant has to be planted, and hence we are using these plants. So tannins can be used, even dyes, coloring agents, then lubricants, it is extracted from the plants, even resins, gums, then even the perfumes, okay, like the sandal perfume which is obtained from the sandalwood plant. So in this way we are cultivating these plants in large scale, but species richness is only one. That's why it is considered under narrow utilitarian reason. Then next one is regarding the construction material, construction of the buildings, construction of the homes. We need wooden doors, wooden windows. Okay, it comes from the forest. Okay, not only we don't take it directly from the forest, we can cultivate these plants like a teak wood plant. We can cultivate the teak wood plantations, you can cultivate the rosewood, you can cultivate the sandalwood. But moreover we are using this teak wood plant in large quantity, that's why the cultivation is done. So it comes under the narrow utilitarian reason. So construction material. Then medicinal plants. India is famous for Ayurvedic sciences because a lot of medicines are produced from the plants which are present in the nature, and still now we use them as in the form of a medicine. For example, if you take a small plant which we commonly know like a osem plant, tulsi plant, so it has lot of medicinal values, okay, because it acts like a cough syrup also, okay. So that's why in this way a lot of many plants are there which can be grown and which are used as a medicinal plants. So almost 25% of the drugs currently sold in the market are obtained from the natural medicinal plants which are grown in the wild. That means they are present in the nature. Now what do? We take them, we cultivate them for the production of these medicines, and by these medicines we are going to cure a lot of human diseases also. Okay, so this is regarding the part of narrow utilitarian reasons for conservation of biodiversity, for preservation of these species. Next comes the broad utilitarian reasons. Broad means it is in large scale. Here we are conserving them in large scale. Then what are these? First one is Amazon rainforest. We are studying about Amazon rainforest. Yes, Amazon rainforest is called as a lungs of planet Earth because it is going to release around 20% of oxygen. It is going to release, it is going to produce 20% of the oxygen by the process of photosynthesis. During photosynthesis, it releases 20% of the world's oxygen. That means, look at this, the entire forest which is present in the world, if we compare the rest part of the world, and if you just look at this Amazon rainforest, which is a huge forest, it produces, it alone produces 20% of the total oxygen of the globe. That's why this is the lung of planet Earth. Okay, through by the process of photosynthesis, oxygen is released in large quantity, and lot many species are there, abundant species are there. Okay, so almost we have thousands of these species which are present in the nature. Okay, next one is pollination. Now suppose if we look at the part of the pollination, pollination is done by various organisms like bees, bumblebees, birds, bats, etc. So almost we have taken only few examples, even other organisms are also there. Pollination is done majorly by what? Insects, and especially these bees play an important role. Almost what we say 70% of the pollination is majorly through the insects only, and moreover it is through the honeybees. Okay, along with that bumblebees are also there, birds like hummingbird, smallest bird, helps in pollination, even bats. Already you have studied in the second chapter in the part of pollination. Okay, like entomophilous flowers, anemophilous flowers, chiropterophilous flowers. So in such a way, pollination is carried by the bees. Now, how does the pollination helps in conservation of the biodiversity? Now, There are some species of plants which are pollinated by the insects. Now, if the pollination occurs, then there is fertilization, then formation from the flower, the seeds and fruits are produced. This seed helps in continuation of the next generation. Remember, seeds help in continuation of the next generation of that variety. Suppose if there is no pollination, then what happens? Death of that species may occur. So that's why through the process of pollination in the wild, in the forest, lot many species can reproduce by this process, because we cannot go to the forest and carry out the process of artificial hybridization. Not at all possible. Okay, we just do it in the agriculture as well as horticulture processes. But how about the biodiversity? How about the wildlife? Now, whether we are responsible for the pollination? No. Okay, you are not Hanuman to fly and do the pollination. So that's why here we have the bees which helps in the process of pollination. Okay, so these are the major pollinators of the plants throughout our globe. That's why by the process of pollination through insects and other varieties of animals, we retain lot many species. That's why it is a broad utilitarian reason. They are broadly preserving our biodiversity. Then aesthetic pleasure. Aesthetic refers to nature's beauty. Aesthetic is nature's beauty. Why do you feel to go to Western Ghats? Why do you feel to go to any falls? Okay, like Gokak Falls and Niagara Falls. Okay, if you wish to go, you can go there also. But look at the nature's beauty there. Okay, so this is what is called as aesthetic pleasure. Now, when you enter into the forest area through the road, if you are moving on both the sides, there will be thick forest. You will enjoy it. Look at the weather. It's a cool weather, cool breeze will be there. You can see a lot of plants, lot of greeneries. Some of the plants have flowered. There is a lot of blooming. That is the nature's beauty. You will observe even some of the water that falls from the hilly regions also, that appears really wonderful. So that makes the nature beauty. Okay, this is what is called as a aesthetic pleasure. So we have to conserve the biodiversity for the nature's pleasure. So this is what is termed as the aesthetic pleasure and the nature's beauty. Then the third part is ethical. What is this ethical reason? There are certain people, ethical people, who think about the biodiversity. What they say is, if we have the right to live in this world, why can't the other organisms? Why can't the plants? Why can't the wildlife? Why can't even the microorganisms like bacteria? That means we don't have any power to kill these species which are present naturally in the nature. That's why each and every organism that is present in this nature, they have their own intrinsic value for survival. So all the species have their intrinsic value for their survival. That's why due to this intrinsic value, each and every species have right to survive, and as they are sharing our planet Earth, so they have equal rights to survive in our planet. So as a result, due to these ethical reasons, we have to save, we have to conserve, we have to preserve our nature. So this is regarding the part of biodiversity conservation and the conservation of the biodiversity. Now with this, we have other aspects also, other ways by which we can conserve our biodiversity, and how can we conserve our biodiversity. So in the part of the biodiversity conservation, we are continuing. It's a continued part of conservation of the biodiversity. Okay, in the conservation of the biodiversity, we have an in situ conservation as well as ex situ conservation. The first one is in situ conservation. Okay, so this is the first one, which is called as a in situ conservation, which is called as a on-site conservation. Then second one is a ex situ conservation. ex situ conservation, which is also called as a off-site. On-site in the natural habitat, off-site out of their natural habitat. They are exactly opposite. In-site or in situ conservation on the natural site, off-site out of the natural habitat. So that's why we have in situ as well as ex situ conservation. That's why what we say is in situ conservation is nothing but a conservation, preservation of the species in their natural habitat. Ex situ conservation is conservation outside their natural habitat. So first let's look at the in situ conservation, and later on we'll look at the ex situ conservation. Now in situ conservation, it refers to protection of species look at this, as the name says, in situ, in their natural habitat. So protection of the species, which is also called as a conservation of the species in their natural habitat. In their natural habitat. So protection of the species in their natural habitat is said to be in situ conservation. So that means we are conserving, we are preserving these plants, the species of plants as well as animals in their natural habitat. Now what we do, if we conserve them in their natural habitat, then ultimately we are going to preserve those species in this globe. Now regarding the part of the in situ conservation, we are conserving, we are preserving, we are giving protection to the forest land, and we are marking certain regions as the area of government land, or area of forest land. This forest land is protected. Okay, then in the in situ conservation we come across a term which is called as a endemism. Okay, now here we come across a term which is called as a endemism. Endemism means the species confined to that region and not found anywhere else. The species confined to these regions, that means they are present in the same region, to that region and not found in the other places, and not found in elsewhere. This is called as a endemic species. That means these endemic species, they are restricted, they are confined to a particular geographical region, like that of the kangaroos. Kangaroos are located in Australian region. Do you find kangaroos in USA? Do you find kangaroos in India? Do you find kangaroos in our local areas? No, because they are endemic species restricted to a particular geographical region. We call those species as endemic species. This is of most important, because the definition of endemism will be asked. So endemic species are those which are confined to a particular region and they are not found elsewhere. We don't find this species in any part of the world. That means they are confined, they are restricted to a particular geographical region, which is called as a endemic species. Okay, then with this let's come to a term which is called as a hotspots. Next term is a hotspots. It's not your mobile hotspot. It is called as a biodiversity hotspot. So biodiversity hotspots refers to the species rich centers. So they are called as a biodiversity rich centers. Species rich areas. So the species rich areas or biodiversity hotspots, they contain lot of species, many different types of species. Remember, not their number, the species. If the number of the species is more, suppose if a tiger is there, lion is there, giraffe, zebra, okay, then Asiatic elephant is there, then along with that other animals, if they are present in a particular forest, then we call that region as a biodiversity hotspot. That means they are species rich centers. Lot many species are present in this area. That's why they are called as a biodiversity hotspots. Now, throughout the world, there are around 34 hotspots. So throughout the globe, and India has 3 hotspots. Okay, now throughout the globe, so 34 hotspots in the world, and 3 hotspots in India. That means India has only 3 hotspots, while the entire world consists of 34 hotspots. So how many hotspots are there in the world? Again, it is an objective question. 34 hotspots in the world. How many in India? There are 3 hotspots in India. Then what are these hotspots? Okay, let's see them. The hotspots which are present in India are the first hotspot. The first one is a Western Ghat, and Sri Lanka. Second is the Indo-Burma region. And third one is the Himalayas. These are the 3 hotspots of India. Remember their names. So these are the 3 hotspots in India. So first one is a Western Ghats that continues to the Sri Lankan region. So Western Ghat biodiversity rich center. That's why we call it as a biodiversity hotspot up to the Sri Lankan region. It has a immense forest. Then Indo-Burma region, which is rich in biodiversity and different lot many species are present here. Himalayan region. So Himalayan region has many species, even many native species are also there, and some of the medicinal species are also present in the Himalayan region. That's why these 3 are the major hotspots. So these are the major hotspots of India. Remember, it is a 3 mark level question where it has to be answered. Okay, so this is regarding the part of the hotspots. Then with this, the next term we come across certain definitions like sacred groves and sacred species. Then with that part, we are coming to the end part of the chapter. And before looking at the end part, let's look at these in situ conservation methodologies. So there are different types of in situ conservations. Okay, let's look at the types of in situ conservation here. So in the in situ conservation, here we come across certain examples like the first one is biosphere reserves. Okay, like example Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve in India. Then second one is national parks. And third one is wildlife sanctuaries. Okay, now these are the different types of in situ conservation. That means in biosphere reserves, national parks as well as wildlife sanctuaries, we are giving protection to the wildlife in their natural habitat. That's why these 3 are the examples of in situ conservation. Now India has how many of these? India has around 14 biosphere reserves, then national parks 90, and wildlife sanctuaries 448. Around 448 wildlife sanctuaries. Okay, now suppose if you take an example of biosphere reserve, Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve is there. Then national park, almost you can look at the Karnataka also. Bandipur National Park is there. Then Rajiv Gandhi National Park, Nagarhole, it is also there. So we have different types of national parks. Kanha National Park, okay, Jim Corbett National Park, in this way. Wildlife sanctuaries, we have different types of sanctuaries also, like Rangantitu Bird Sanctuary, Ghataprabha Bird Sanctuary, Attiveri Bird Sanctuary. Okay, so other types of sanctuaries, wildlife sanctuaries are also there. Okay, along with that, this is regarding the part of the types of in situ conservation. Now, in the biosphere reserves as well as the national park, let's look at an example first of the national park. Now, let's look at the first national park. The first national park in India, it is called as Jim Corbett National Park. Jim Corbett National Park, located in Uttarakhand. It's located in the Uttarakhand. Jim Corbett National Park is the first national park in India. Then, in the world, the first national park in the world is a Yellowstone National Park. This is in USA. Yellowstone National Park is the first national park in the world which is located in USA, and almost it was established in the 1800 century only. And Jim Corbett National Park is the first national park in India which is located in Uttarakhand. This is in Uttarakhand of India. This is in USA. So Jim Corbett National Park was the first national park in India, and in the world the first national park was Yellowstone National Park. Okay, now if we look at these national parks, we make certain zones. Now in these national parks, we can easily make up the zones. Like the central part of this national park, we call them as core zones. Then the outer part, the transition as well as the buffer zones. So there are different types of zonations where we call them as in the national park. We just make in this way, like this zones. Now these zones, okay, because national parks, wildlife, national parks are bigger than the sanctuaries. If you look at them, biosphere reserves are biggest. One biosphere reserve may contain one or more national parks. One national park may contain one or more wildlife sanctuaries. That means biosphere reserves are very large in terms of their area in square kilometers. National parks are smaller than biosphere reserves. Wildlife sanctuaries are smaller than national parks. Now, in a national park or a biosphere reserve, we make certain zones. Now, what are these zones? The outer part of this forest land, they are called as a transition zone. Then the next zone, this is called as a buffer zone. And the central part of the national park, this is called as a core zone. So transition zone, buffer zone, and a core zone. So these are the three zones. Okay. So first, second, and three zones. Transition zone is that zone in which human activities are allowed. That means collection of the wood, and if there are certain plant products also from the forest, they can be taken by these residential people, or we call them as tribal people, who are present near to the forest areas. Now this is the transition zone where human activity is allowed. Buffer zone, inside this we call it as buffer zone, where animals are present. Wildlife study, even the discovery people, national geography people, they go for the study and research purpose. So that's why buffer zone, it is for study and research. Okay, so study and research purpose is allowed in the buffer zone. Core zone, it is a central part of the national park, or it is a central part of the biosphere reserve where no human activity is allowed, because lot many animal species and plant species are there. Humans are not allowed to disturb the wildlife in the core zone. So not at all permitted. It is totally banned for the humans. Okay, so this is to conserve and preserve our natural source. So this is regarding the part of the zones which are present in national park as well as the biosphere reserves. So with this, we'll move on to the last session. We'll complete it in the next class. Thank you.